These two concepts are like ABCD of anthropology. These are basic vocabulary, parts of basic vocabulary which we need to understand if we want to understand the entire anthropology syllabus. So wherever you come across the socio-cultural anthropology or even in theories also, anthropological theories, you need the basic understanding of these two terms, that is cultural relativism and ethnocentrism.
Subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so that you will never miss any update.
Hello guys, myself Dr. Pradeep Dubal from Gnandeep SciIS Pune, and I am here with one of the important concepts in anthropology, that is cultural relativism and ethnocentrism. These are the two concepts which are actually given as a small part in paper 1 of point number 2.1 and 2.2. That is, when we study the nature of culture and nature of society, we come across these points. But this is not limited to only these points. These two concepts are like ABCD of anthropology. These are basic vocabulary, parts of basic vocabulary which we need to understand if we want to understand the entire anthropology syllabus. So wherever you come across the socio-cultural anthropology or even in theories also, anthropological theories, you need the basic understanding of these two terms, that is cultural relativism and ethnocentrism. Now let us start with ethnocentrism. What is ethnocentrism? Ethnocentrism as a concept, if we try to understand, these are some dictionary meanings which I have collected from the dictionaries such as Merriam-Webster or WordWeb or Oxford Dictionary. These say, in first, the belief inherent in the inherent superiority of one's own ethnic group or culture. It means, in sociology this term is used, that is sociology or anthropology. From that view, it is defined as the belief in the inherent superiority of one's own ethnic group or culture. If some person considers his or her own ethnic group is the most superior one, then it's ethnocentrism. Or it is a tendency to view the alien groups or cultures from the perspective of one's own view. That is, I consider my own culture, my own values, and on the basis of those values, I tend to judge another person's culture or another alien group. Okay, so I am I'm comparing another culture with my own culture, and I consider my culture as the best culture, and on the basis of that I judge the another culture. So that tendency is nothing but the ethnocentrism according to another dictionary meaning. Or it is characterized by or based on the attitude that one's own group is superior. So this is the basic understanding of ethnocentrism. It can be concretely defined as, ethnocentrism is a view which considers that the culture of a particular ethnic group is superior to all other cultures. So this is the definition which you can write down in the examination. It's a view which considers that the culture of particular ethnic group is superior to all other cultures. That is, if I am ethnocentric, I will consider my own culture as the best culture or some particular culture as the best culture, and all the other cultures are somewhat inferior to my culture. Okay. So this is the diagram which explains the ethnocentrism. Ethno is related to culture. Ethno is basically, it means culture, and centrism, that is at the center. I tend to keep my own culture at the center, the best form of culture, the best or pristine form of culture. And if another culture, any other culture is away from my central culture, then it is impure, it is inferior, it is somewhat diluted, etc. So I consider my own culture, I put it at the center, and I consider my own culture as the best form of culture. And the other cultures which are away from my culture are considered as inferior forms of culture. Okay, so more the distance, more will be the inferior form of culture. Okay, so this is ethnocentrism. Examples, the first example can be quoted in the form of European imperialism. So when the colonization occurred in the world, the colonies in the world were one of the regions that Europeans tried to control from overseas. They also overlooked the lands of Africa, and they believed that both Africa and Asia to be primitive societies based on hunting and farming. and they felt that they needed to take over these nations in order to bring them up to the speed with modern technology. So this colonial idea was considering that the European societies basically are the superior societies, and the African and Asian societies are inferior societies. Don't know on what grounds, but those people were thinking in that way. So this idea was reflected in one of the books or one of the poem written by Rudyard Kipling, that was White Man's Burden. So this White Man's Burden poem said that the Western societies or white races had the burden of civilizing the entire world. So those areas of the world in Africa and Asia which are primitive, which are living on the hunting and farming, we need to develop them, we need to civilize them. So this idea was the imperialistic idea, which was basically ethnocentric, and this ethnocentrism favored or it helped for imperialism to flourish. Another example, considering the tribal cultures are backward and barbaric. So many times we call the tribal societies as primitive societies. So this primitive word is also sometimes considered as derogatory, because if we consider that tribals are backward and barbaric, then we are underestimating their many of the inherent values which are more important and more advanced than our societies also. This kind of thought ignores the peculiarity and uniqueness of those cultures and their values, and many times this results in suppression and exploitation. It happens with the tribal societies. They are exploited, they are suppressed just because we consider that their culture is inferior. Actually, it is not. In many areas, for example, if we consider the sex ratio of tribal societies, it is much better than the modern societies. So in respecting the women, in considering the importance of balance in the both sexes, so if we consider those factors, we can say that tribal societies are much more developed in their thought process, in their practices. So when we consider that tribal cultures are backward and our cultures are superior, again we are involved in ethnocentric ideas. Then third one is Nazi Germany. It is one of the most well-known and most horrible examples of ethnocentrism. So what happened in Nazi Germany? Adolf Hitler was of the opinion that Aryan race was the most superior race and no any other race can compete with the Aryan race, and Jews did not deserve to live in the world as they were inferior. And the subsequent mass massacres of Jews and the atrocities on these Jews followed. So again, this Nazi Germany is one of the most important examples of ethnocentrism. Then Mandate of Heaven. So this was the philosophy of Confucius. Confucius was one of the thinkers, one of the person from China, and it considered that this philosophy of Confucius, that is Mandate of Heaven, it considered that the Chinese people had a mandate of heaven, that is they had a divine power which was lacked by the other people on the earth. So only Chinese people were having it. So Chinese felt that this divine power which has entitled them to exert heavy rule over the citizens, and they had power over the rest of the world. So again, it gives importance to themselves. That is, Chinese tried to give importance to themselves and they consider the remaining world as inferior one. Again, this is an ethnocentric idea. Okay. Next is religious conflicts. So the false religious consciousness of the religion. So it is seen almost in all religions. All religious thoughts are becoming extreme these days. So this false consciousness of religion results in unnecessary superiority complex about the religion of self. So if I am a Hindu, then I will consider Hinduism as the best religion and other religions are contradictory to it and they are inferior. If I am Muslim, I may consider Muslim is the best religion of the world. So is the case with Christianity, Buddhism, etc. So this false consciousness of religion, that is my religion is the most superior one, this results in the inferior values being given to the other religions. The own religion is considered as the most superior and the values of the other religions are seen as inferior. Again, this is an ethnocentric thought. So what happens due to this ethnocentrism, or what are the disadvantages of this ethnocentrism? First is it obstructs the intercultural relations. So societies and groups can flourish through coexistence. Coexistence and cooperation is necessary for survival. But if one group develops ethnocentric attitude towards the other group, it will hamper the intercultural relationships, and the intercultural relationships, if they are not maintained smoothly, the connection between the two cultures will be blocked for forever, and it will hamper the cultural exchange and the exchange of good practices between the two cultures, etc. It prolongs or hinders the assimilation. Assimilation is the process of fusion through which individuals and groups acquire the cultural patterns, attitudes, and ideas of the other groups and individuals. So by the process of acculturation or transculturation, we tend to exchange the values of the two cultures. That is, my culture will be having some good ideas, another culture will be having some another good ideas. So through assimilation, these ideas are exchanged. And if there is ethnocentric attitude which has prevented the contact between the two cultures, then this process of assimilation can be prolonged, or sometimes it may also be stopped. So this is again because of ethnocentrism. The next disadvantage of ethnocentrism is it blocks the road to growth of human knowledge, acculturation, assimilation, dissemination of religious teachings, and mutual cooperation. Then the unity and integration of the different societies become difficult. The proper understanding of different cultures, societies, and average personalities become difficult because of ethnocentric attitudes prevailing among the different cultures. Okay, so these are some of the disadvantages of ethnocentrism. Okay, then advantages. So whatever we saw till now about ethnocentrism was only negativity or the disadvantages of ethnocentrism. But is it totally negative term? So actually not. Actually, ethnocentrism is not totally negative term, or it is not disadvantageous all the time. Some anthropologists or sociologists define the ethnocentrism in two ways, that is positive ethnocentrism and negative ethnocentrism. Some go ahead of it and call it as neutral ethnocentrism. Positive, negative, and neutral. So what is the advantage of ethnocentrism, or what is the positive idea in this ethnocentrism which is considered or which is being ridiculed in last few slides? So it should not be taken for granted that ethnocentrism is always harmful to the individuals and society. This type of thinking would present one-sided picture of the reality. Ethnocentrism also performs these certain positive functions of individuals and groups and societies. For example, solidarity within the society is enhanced through ethnocentrism. If I consider my own society is the best society, what's wrong in that? As far as I'm not hurting the interests of any other society, this kind of thought that my society is the best society will be totally okay. So if ethnocentrism is taught on the uniform lines within the society, it enhances the solidarity within society and decreases the minor or major sectarian, class or racial frictions and conflicts. Okay, so this is one of the positive outcomes of ethnocentrism. Thus, positive and planned ethnocentrism saves the society from disintegration to large extent. It helps in bringing the progress to a nation. Again, nationalism, this word has come here, nationalism. If I consider my own nation as the best nation in the world, is there anything wrong in this? Probably no, unless I am affecting the national interest of someone who is not from my nation, someone who is from outside nation, and my own national interest. I am talking about my own nation. I am talking about my own nation, that my nation is the best nation in the world. It should not be considered as somewhat negative. It increases our national pride. It motivates us to do something for our nation. So again, this is a positive concept. Then, devotion to the society. National solidarity and devotion to one's society can only be possible if the members maintain ethnocentrism, that is, to think that they are right. Okay. The patriotic spirit can be changed by creating and maintaining the spirit of ethnocentrism. I can increase the patriotic spirit among the individuals by saying that our nation is the best nation in the world and we have to protect it and we have to maintain its integrity. So this thought does not inculcate any negative value among the individuals. This is very positive term. Ethnocentrism encourages the patriotism and loyalty to one's own society and culture. At the time of war and other abnormal conditions, people are ready to work hard to save their society and culture just because they consider their society and culture as the best culture. Okay, so ethnocentrism has these positive outcomes as well. Okay, but this ethnocentrism idea, when it encroaches the anthropological research, it may create some problems or it may create some undesired effects. If I want to understand one particular culture from a third person perspective, I should keep my culture or the ideas or values of my culture away for some time. Okay, otherwise it will hamper, it will affect the study of the society which I am going to study. So every culture or every society should be studied in its own terms, in its own context. Okay, so the ethnocentrism over there is not useful, and to overcome this ethnocentrism, Franz Boas developed the principle of cultural relativism. So cultural relativism is the next concept which considers or which says that every culture or the values of every culture are relative and no culture is superior, no culture is inferior, no society is superior or inferior. So that idea is cultural relativism. We will see that concept in detail. Then Bronislaw Malinowski, he developed the theory of functionalism as guides for producing non-ethnocentric studies of different cultures. So functionalism is one of the thought which focuses on the structure of the society and the parts of society which function in their own manner, and it basically focuses on the functional aspect of the different cultural traits. And these functions of the cultural traits will be different in different societies. So one culture should be isolated, or the study of one culture should be detached from the study of another culture. And this is again the relativistic or non-ethnocentric aspect, non-ethnocentric approach of the study. Then the sexual life of savages in northwestern Melanesia. So this was Malinowski's work, in which he produced so many non-ethnocentric studies of different societies. Then Margaret Mead and Ruth Benedict, again these two were the students of Franz Boas. And Margaret Mead's book Coming of Age in Samoa and Ruth Benedict's book Patterns of Culture, that is it was the concept, pattern of culture was the concept developed by Ruth Benedict. So these two again were the particularistic approaches, and these were again against the ethnocentrism or anti-ethnocentric in nature. So these are the reactions to ethnocentrism as a thought. Okay, now next is cultural relativism. Cultural relativism, again these are two dictionary definitions or dictionary meanings. It's a concept that considers that the cultural norms and values derive their meaning within the specific social context. That is, no value, no cultural norm is inferior or superior. They derive their meaning in specific social context. In one social context, maybe they may be positive. In another social context, they may be negative. So there is no any particular notion that is either it is positive or negative. It's a theory that beliefs, customs, morality exist in relation to the particular culture from which they originate, and they are not absolute. Okay, they are relative. So this is the concept of cultural relativism. This is the definition which you can write in the paper of anthropology. That is, cultural relativism is the idea that person's belief, value and practices should be understood based on the person's own culture rather than judged against the criteria of another. Okay. So I should not consider any one culture, any one particular culture as the best culture. The cultural relativism says that no any culture is superior or inferior, and the person's belief, value and practices, or the belief, value, practices in a culture, they should be understood based on the person's own culture rather than judged against the criteria of another. So whatever bad is there in my culture, it should be bad according to me only. Whatever is good there in my culture, that should be good according to my culture only. Okay. So that is the idea of cultural relativism. It was established as an axiomatic in the anthropological research by Franz Boas in the first few decades of 20th century and later popularized by his students. So Franz Boas is one of the most important anthropologists in the study, in the fieldwork tradition of anthropology, and as he was involved in the fieldwork, he was of the opinion that every culture should be understood from its own point of view. Every culture has its unique characteristics, and we should not have bias towards one particular culture. So that was the Boyesian approach. He first articulated this idea in 1887 when he said that civilization is not something absolute, but it's relative, and our ideas and conceptions are true only so far as our civilization goes. Means our ideas, our conceptions may be true as far as our civilization goes. In another civilization, they may not hold true. Okay. So civilization is not something absolute. It's a relative concept. Okay. So Franz Boas was the one who developed this idea, one who explored this idea to the fullest. But Franz Boas did not coin the term. He did not coin the term. The first use of the term recorded in Oxford Dictionary was by philosopher and social theorist Alan Locke in 1924. And he had used this concept to describe Robert Lowe's extreme cultural relativism found in Letter's 1917 book Culture and Ethnology. Okay. So Robert Lowe's concept of extreme cultural relativism was later on included in his book, that is Culture and Ethnology. And to explain this, Alan Locke had used the term cultural relativism in Oxford Dictionary in 1924. This term became common among the anthropologists after Boas' death in 1942 to express their synthesis of number of ideas the Boas had developed. Okay, so this is the theoretical part. But what are the practical examples of this? So before that, in the context of early science, the cultural relativism became an important tool for pushing back on the ethnocentrism. So basically, if we consider the evolution or the creation of this concept, basically it was created to counter the ethnocentric idea. Okay, that often tarnished the research at the time of which it was mostly conducted by white, wealthy and Western men, and often focused on the people of color, that is black colored people or the non-white people, the foreign indigenous populations and the persons of low economic class than the researcher. So when the scientists or anthropologists which were involved in anthropological research were only white people, wealthy people or Western men, they used to consider their own culture as the best culture, and they used to focus only on the colored people or foreign indigenous populations or tribal societies, persons from lower economic class than the researchers. So their research was biased, their research was loaded with ethnocentric observations, and that is why to counter this, the Boyesian approach or Franz Boas developed the concept of cultural relativism. Okay. So what is the view of cultural relativism? Examples. The first one is polygamy. Now, if we try to understand the concept of polygamy, in most of the societies, the polygamy is not followed. Polygamy is followed only in some few religions and few tribal societies. Otherwise, monogamy is mostly followed in the majority of societies of the world. So we may consider that polygamy is a negative concept. It is exploitative for women, or it is something which is sinful. but it should not be considered as the only best marital practice according to cultural relativism. The relativistic view says that the monogamy is not the only best practice, not the only marital practice, best marital practice. In some cultures, it may be considered as perfectly normal, owing to its own cultural values. So, suppose if a society is there where the sex ratio is totally reversed, that is, men are very few and women are many in number, and if the monogamy is followed, so many women will be left out. So, in such societies, the polygamy does not become a sin or does not become a negative term. It becomes perfectly normal thing. Okay, so we should not judge their culture based on our values. Another context, historical context, if we see, in the earlier period, many kings were going for polygamy, polygamous marriages. So were they marrying so many women just for the sake of women? No. Many times even the king was not able to see the faces of all his wives. Then why did he go for polygamous marriages? So actually what happened at that time, so many people, when they were killed in the wars, so many widows were left unsupported. And just to provide them a support, just to provide them a label that they are wives of a king, and to protect them from social evils, the vulgar elements in society, he used to marry those women. So there was no any element of lust or no any element of attraction towards women. It was just a measure to protect the women from those social evils and vulgar elements in society. So if a king would reject the polygamous marriages and would reject or deny to marry the widows of war, he was considered as one who is running from his own responsibility, okay, to protect those women. So again, if we consider this idea, the polygamous marriage was perfectly okay. It should not be considered as something inferior idea. Okay, so polygamy should not be considered as either positive or negative based on our own values. It should be judged on the basis of the ideas of that particular culture where it is being followed. Okay, the next is nudity. In most of the mainstream societies, that like our society, most of the body parts are covered, especially the private parts. They are covered with the clothes. And in these societies, nudity is considered as sexual signal or invitation. But this is not the case with many tribal societies or many other cultures. In many tribal cultures, the nudity is considered as totally normal and not at all an invitation for sex. There are many societies, tribal societies, where the women do not wear the cloth above waist. Their breasts are totally naked, but it is not an invitation for sex. This nudity is not to be considered as sexual signal. Again, this is an example of cultural relativism. Then, development of tribes. Primitive people is a common phrase used for tribal people in many literatures because they are said to be lagging behind in the process of evolution and development. But it is again an ethnocentric idea to call them as a primitive people. It is again an ethnocentric idea which ignores the fact that it is just the way of development which differs. These people have also developed, but in a different way. Actually, the idea of development sometimes become ethnocentric when we define the development in our own language. The development should always be defined in the language of people themselves or the beneficiaries themselves who undergo it. Okay, so we do not or we should not call the tribals as undeveloped. Actually, they are lagging behind from the mainstream society, but it should not be they should not be called as primitive people, or they should not be called as survivals of past relics or the social fossils as they are called by some classical evolutionists. Okay, so it is a derogatory term to be used for tribals. Okay, then why cultural relativism is important? So this is important as far as the anthropological research is concerned. Anthropological research will not be objective if we are not following the realms of cultural relativism, if we are not following the ideas of cultural relativism, our research, anthropological research, will not be considered as or will not become an objective study of one particular culture. Okay. So this cultural relativism is crucial to understand the unknown people and their cultures. Without it, we are subject to misinterpretation and incorrect assumptions. Okay. So cultural relativism is essentially not making value judgments on another culture in relation to ours. So our culture is kept a bit aside, and then the culture to be studied is analyzed or evaluated. Okay, so it will prevent or it will not make the value judgments on another culture in relation to ours. So it helps to analyze the culture objectively. It helps to analyze the culture from bird's eye view, third person view. Okay. To study a culture scientifically, one cannot make value judgments as it interferes with the scientific objectivity and is a form of bias. If one goes into the field with a negative attitude towards culture, the customs and beliefs they study, there will be a bias. So, I should not go into a field, I should not go into any society which I am going to study with some preconception or with some notions that these cultural traits are negative, these cultural traits, these particular cultural traits are the only positive traits, etc. So these ideas should not be there in my mind. Okay. So there will be bias if I consider some customs, cultural traits or beliefs as negative ones, then there will be a bias in study. And conversely, I guess it could work the other way. If we laud another culture's belief or customs as good and desirable based on our own cultural tests, we are also showing the bias. In that case also, we are showing bias towards the cultural analysis or one particular culture. We should not consider our own culture as inferior also and the another culture as superior also. Okay. Because this approach also hampers the objective analysis or study of the culture. Okay. Now, to study the culture objectively, one must be neutral in whether or not something is desirable or not, but merely make conclusions as to why they do what they do and not whether or not it is good according to our own cultural view. Okay. So, one should be totally neutral. One should be totally away from preconceptions, away from the pre-existing notions about one particular culture which he or she is going to study. Okay. Some issues. There are again some problems with. Okay, of course we got to know about the utility of cultural relativism, its importance in anthropological research, etc. But what are the issues regarding cultural relativism? First is, sometimes if I consider that my culture is the best culture, okay, and if I consider that every culture is equal, every culture is good in its own context, then I should respect or I will be compelled to respect and consider every cultural value as the important one or as the significant one in those particular cultures. So sometimes it may lead to violation of human rights in some cultures. Okay, so relativistic outlook may prevent us from criticizing some violations of human rights. For example, Sati Pratha, that is concremation, where the wife is burnt with the husband. When the husband dies, the alive wife is burnt with the husband's dead body. So, this practice from relativistic point of view is considered or should be considered from its own context. In that culture it is considered positive, then it should be considered positive only. We should not apply our value judgments or we should not apply our values to analyze the positivity or negativity of that practice. So this outlook prevents the criticism of violation of human right, that woman's human right is being violated. So we cannot criticize that just because of the idea of cultural relativism. Again, dowry system in India is another cultural or social evil which cannot be criticized. Okay. Headhunting or human sacrifice in some other societies, discriminatory personal laws again. These are again from relativistic point of view, these are considered to be okay. That is, those personal laws should be evaluated in the context of those religions only, those particular religions only. But these personal laws are many times exploitative for women, but we cannot negate them. Otherwise, we will become ethnocentric. So this creates problem. Okay. Then it creates the feeling of nihilism. Nihilism is hopelessness. How? As the relativists defy the claim of certain common benchmark for universal evaluation, they will consider that whatever is present in today's culture is the best thing and there can't be any improvement. So the relativistic approach, what it will consider, that whatever exists in my culture is the best one. There will be no any benchmark to compare my culture to any another culture. So if this benchmark is missing and every culture is considered to be important culture, every culture is considered to be the best culture, best form of culture, then there will be no any universal benchmark to evaluate the cultural norms. Okay. So some ideas are of course negative. We have to criticize them. We have to remove them from our society. We have to adopt the practices of some other cultures and improve our own culture. For example, if an autocratic government is saying that from the relativistic point of view, an autocratic government may justify its existence in that particular country. In few days ago, Chinese president had said that China does not deserve democracy, or democracy is not suitable for China. The best form which China is having right now, that is the communist form, or it is autocratic form hidden in the name of communism. So whatever it may be, it is not democratic, of course. So that culture, that particular political regime is the only best form of regime for China. So this kind of comment or this kind of attitude, this kind of approach will keep the China away from democracy, which of course is the best form of governance, because it gives us the liberty to commit the mistakes as well as to correct them. Democracy is of course the best form of governance according to majority of the world population. And if we see through relativistic point of view, democracy is not the best form of governance. Autocracy may have its own benefits, quick decision making or easier implementation of schemes, etc. So that will be possible, and that's why autocratic governments may say that their political regime is the best one. So there is no any point where we can criticize any particular culture, and there is no any way to improve our particular culture. So whatever exists at one particular point, one particular society, that's the best form, that's the best possibility. So this feeling, because of relativism, creates the nihilism. It creates the nihilism. Okay. So whatever the first point which I told you, that the violation of human rights is not criticized and is not criticized in relativistic outlook, as well as it creates the nihilism. So these are postmodernist ideas. Postmodernist ideas are extremely relativistic, and these create these two problems. Okay. So this was about cultural relativism and ethnocentrism. I hope I was able to clarify your concepts, or I was able to explain these two concepts in adequate manner. So even if you still have some problem, you can ask me on this number. This is my WhatsApp number. So I'll be replying to you as per my convenience. But keep asking any doubts if you are having. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.